Welcome to Jeremy from Mac 3. It's great to have you here today. The purpose of our catch-up is just to have a discussion around some of the business opportunities and challenges you faced during the recent COVID lockdown and recovery. So, how are you today?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Just in terms of sort of a starter for 10, what was one of the positives that came out of the lockdown for you?
That I wasn't ready to sell my company, to be honest. So prior to COVID, I was getting pretty tired, and so I'm still here.
I'm just curious to understand why that is. You know, for a lot of business owners, obviously the mental anxiety and stress of managing cash flow and the people in that during the period was really tough. So what's sort of created that motivation to dig deep and grow the business again?
To be fair, businesses in Canterbury and the Canterbury region has been hard for the last 5 years after the rebuild. There was quite a downturn in the economy in the last couple of years, so it has been a bit of a grind. And then it felt like the icing on the cake was the COVID for me, myself personally, and I had to really dig deep. And prior to COVID, I was saying to my wife Anna, who also works with me,
yes.
I was tired and I was struggling, and if someone had offered me a nice check, I would have considered it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really intriguing, and now you're sort of more motivated than ever to rebuild the business, because everyone's really suffered, quite significantly through the period, and you and Anna have dug down. And what's the personal resilience behind that?
We're too young to retire.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe I've got a few expensive tastes that I have to fulfil. Kids are still at high school. So it's better the devil you know than the one that you don't in business. So I realised pretty quickly I didn't want to sell.
Okay. And just in terms of your team, how did that go working from home? How did you engage with them, and how did you keep them motivated about work?
For us, it was really, really difficult because it happened really suddenly, without any notice. So, and because we're an engineering company, our guys work on the tools. Yes. So working from home is not an option. They have to, there's just no other way of being able to make an income from them. So it was quite difficult in that aspect, and how sudden it was. So Anna did a lot of work behind the scenes, and we did a lot of online training with our staff. Yes. So through that period of time.
Did they have any challenge accessing sort of hardware and laptops and that to do the training, or were you able to supply that, or how did you get around that?
So it was one of the things Anna looked at, was how not everybody has a laptop. Yes. So we looked at a online training matrix that had was app-based as well, so you could access it from your cell phone as well as a laptop. So most people have a smartphone, so that wasn't an issue.
So this was probably the first time you've used such a online training module for the business?
Yeah, it was brilliant actually, because you couldn't fast track it. They had to go through the module, and then there was an exam at the end, and then they had to pass the test on each subject to go forward. Yes. So it also showed us where it was predominantly mainly on health and safety. Yes. And COVID. There was some apps on training apps on COVID. So it also showed where there was some synergy in the training, and especially in the health and safety sector, where we presumed as owners that our staff knew the rules and regulations and safety, and where the staff all commonly got things wrong, we were able to re-strengthen that when they all came back.
So as an outcome going forward, having this online training platform will obviously save a lot of time for Anna and yourself in terms of pulling together the materials and policies and that when you can access it from a third party. Yeah,
and it also the COVID has been a really big distraction for a lot of people and staff as well. So we were worried that people would be complacent when they come back to work and their mind wasn't on their job. So having them strengthening the health and safety side of our business just reduced that risk.
And obviously health and safety is a key focus for your business as you recover from COVID.
Yeah, we actually, part of that COVID time, Anna and I worked on our business. We worked on relaunching our business for engineering for safety as opposed to what it currently is.
Okay, and so that's a new focus for the business?
Correct, yes. It's an area where we see we've got growth moving forward.
And it's interesting, there's a lot of noise in the market about businesses pivoting, and obviously you're an example of that. And obviously with that, there's obviously a lot of investment in terms of, doing your rebrand and, digital enablement. Have you done any work around digital enablement during the period in terms of websites and branding and marketing?
We've touched on it. It was really hard,
Yes.
Because you need that external help, and during that lockdown period, you can't actually get a lot of one-on-one. And
Yes.
for myself personally, I like to sit down with somebody and go through those options. So a lot of it was worked on behind the scenes. A lot of our information we already had. We're just going to have to try and put it all together.
That's something obviously you can work on now as we've moved out of lockdown.
Yeah.
Just in terms of, you talked about staff engagement and motivating them, how did you keep them motivated? Because I know for us and for many businesses that was a real challenge, and obviously just even the basic communication on a regular basis. What did you do to motivate the team, and you and Anna?
Well, to be fair, looking back, we could have motivated our staff a lot more.
Yes.
Due to the fact that they were unable to do their tasks on a daily basis. For a few of our staff, it was kind of like, if it sounds awful, it was a holiday for them. The only work we could offer them was online training. So it was more about motivating them when they came back. Back to the workshop.
And that's quite a mind shift, isn't it, for them? Having had sort of 6 weeks off and then having to come back into work.
Anna and I were, when our staff came back, they were quite refreshed. But for Anna and I, we were exhausted because we worked harder than ever before during that period.
And obviously Anna and yourself are owner operators, you govern the business, you manage it. What sort of support did you have to help you guys? Because it can be quite a lonely place as a business owner.
Yeah, being in business honestly is quite lonely because you feel quite isolated, to be fair. Anna and I were really, really fortunate in the aspect that we have an amazing board that we have appointed quite a long time ago, and also we had yourself, Matt, from Grant Thornton, and my wife, who is my business partner, and I were able to share the burden together, to be fair, because it's a lot for one person. I'd hate to be a person by themselves in business trying to go for it all alone. It would be terrifying.
So if you're giving some advice to other business owners, is create a support network of people that can share the load and they can just bounce ideas off and just discuss some of the challenges that they're facing.
100%, and positive reinforcement from people. That's the most important, because there's a lot of negative out there, so it's having that positive reinforcement from your peers and network of people.
So how did you manage the communication with your clients during the time? Obviously you've got a wide range of clients across a number of sectors, some from very large clients down to smaller clients. How did that work for you?
Over the lockdown period, I found it really difficult, because it brought me back to when we had that earthquake period and stuff, and a lot of people were distraught. So looking back in hindsight, it's amazing. I felt I could have communicated a lot more. I was probably more on my back foot. I was more reserved. And when I was communicating with a lot of my staff and clients, it was more on a personal level than a business level. So it was quite emotionally draining because everyone's been affected so differently.
And that, the conversations I was having with clients was very similar. Some of it was, purposely about the business, but other parts was about just how they were coping and managing things. And it was a challenging time for people, and, just communicating with clients and knowing how much communication, how little, because different people, depending on where they were from a mental perspective, what sort of communication, electronic, is it an email, is it a call? Did you sort of have a preference?
To be honest, it was one of the nicest period, hardly any emails. So it was the first time ever I was able to keep on top of my emails without having to come in on a weekend and just clear emails. So in that aspect it was good. So the majority of my communication was by phone, and it was direct mobile to mobile, to be fair.
And I've also found that clients are more interested in getting on the phone, having a conversation, than just communicating via email. And obviously you can build stronger rapport with your clients and also understand what's going on just through the tone of the voice and the conversation you're having. So
yeah, it was good. And the common conversation was uncertainty. I felt across all my clients' contact was their uncertainty and our uncertainty, and that was the most common conversation really.
And it made it a bit easier to have those conversations.
Yeah, it just brought the barriers down really, because we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, we're all in it together was one of the comments that was often sort of bandied around, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just in terms of your customers and clients, has the buying behaviour changed at all?
Prior to that lockdown period, we noticed that we had a downturn in sales.
Yes.
So our business model is quite reactive. So we found that we were quietening down prior to lockdown because there was more and more uncertainty. There was more rumours of what New Zealand was going to do. So that had a direct effect to our business and our pipeline of sales.
And that probably made it harder coming into the lockdown, because obviously if trading had already been reduced, you're working off a lower base in terms of cash flow as well. So so it's difficult. And a lot of businesses have been sort of seeing a slowdown over the last 12, 18 months. Not jump off the cliff sort of stuff, but just a general trending downwards. So your experience is similar to many. Do you think customers are more loyal as a result of COVID? And obviously you have a number of really, you're doing a lot of specialist work, and you have some really unique relationships. Has that changed there?
That's probably one of the reasons why I want to stay in business, was that I have a large handful of clients, and the loyalty they're given to me after COVID was phenomenal. It was amazing. So people finding work for us, the odd jobs, that type of thing. So that was a governing factor for me personally to fight on. To be fair,
that client loyalty.
Yeah, because you end up becoming it's more than just a client and customer.
It's personal relationships.
Yeah, and that's key in business.
Have the just in terms of the purchasing habits, obviously you do a lot of large work, but also small work. What's the change of the dynamics that have gone on in that space?
Again, it's really changed. So we had a lot in our pipeline of sales. We had quite a few large projects. The favourite word was called deferred. So we're busy on small projects and not big projects. So a lot of our clients, it's very reactive and patchy. So as opposed to projects and tendering and that sort of stuff. So it's very reactive.
So it must make it hard to manage from your point of view, and obviously you're heavily involved with the sales in the business, and one of your key roles is sales. So obviously that means a lot more communication with your clients and understanding what their plans are, I suppose. Yeah,
and with the sales and that is being able to deliver when they need it, because there's a lot of gaps in the pipeline of supply chain. There's with manufacturing companies and construction companies with just access to raw materials, as well as other companies leaning their supply chain, so meaning it takes longer for us to get our items.
Yeah, no, with the work I've been doing with you, I've noticed sales were starting to trend upwards again, and then we went into level 2.
I know I was getting quite excited until level 2.
And has that been a little bit of seen a little bit of reduction in sales activity? Yeah,
we have seen a reduction, and in my opinion, it's uncertainty. Nobody likes uncertainty. So with uncertainty, people don't like to do projects. At this moment at the current economy.
Just obviously we were talking about the cash flow implications of the slowing down, and that. How important was the wage subsidy for Mach 3 Industries?
The wage subsidy was amazing. It really. We probably wouldn't be talking today if it wasn't for the wage subsidy, because that was one of the factors that Anna and I had just to cover the wage cost and our other fixed costs that we have owning a business.
And there's a real commitment to your staff to try and keep them employed, obviously, and they've got families to feed as well, so that's always a challenge and an extra sort of weight on your shoulders as a business owner. Just in terms of managing that cash flow, what were some of the things that you did to help manage it in a proactive way?
So we reduced our salary significantly and kept all the money back in the business. So Anna and I, we only draw enough to survive on. Personally, we went on to interest only on our personal house. We looked at reducing fixed costs personally in our own household, as well as in the business, and where we could do cost savings. So one of the phenomenal ones was our landlord. That was one of our biggest fixed costs. So we were very fortunate to open dialogue with our landlord straight away, and being one of the keys was actually being really transparent, and we just showed him where we were at financially.
Yes.
Against this time last year.
And he was really supportive?
Yeah, he was over supportive. He even offered the first few months rent free, but because we have our gear and equipment still there and we were deemed as an essential service, we agreed to be 50-50 and then try and ramp back up to 100%.
Yes. And it's interesting, there's a lot of conversation in the media about landlords and some landlords being supportive and not being supportive. It sounds like your landlord was really supportive, and one of the keys to that was just that level of transparency that you had with them and honesty. And I suppose, is it possible to have a win-win for both parties?
Yeah, landlords are in business as well,
yes.
So they're just invested that you stay there as you are staying there and earning money for them, paying rent.
Yes.
So.
Just in terms of the supply chain for your business, obviously you manufacture lots of different items. Have you had any difficulty accessing supply to materials?
Especially currently, that has slowed down getting stuff from out of Auckland. And overall, it is more difficult from overseas as well. There is certain areas that it is delays in shipment.
So what are you doing to sort of manage those difficulties?
The hardest thing is you've got to be proactive.
Yes.
Once we've been awarded a tender, we're actually having to place all our orders ahead of time to ensure that the goods arrive to be fabricated.
Have you found any ways to mitigate some of that investment?
Being honest and upfront with our clients, so getting a deposit, progress invoicing has been helpful. People aren't afraid to do a progress invoice if it means they can secure the items, raw materials before, so there's no delays at the other end. So there's plenty of ways of plenty of options. And
it's great if you've got clients that are prepared to help you, and they obviously understand your position as well, and they can put some money down on a deposit just to support that.
Yeah, they're in the same boat.
Yes.
We're all in the same boat, so yeah.
You mentioned when we were talking about cash flow before that cost reduction was one of the key initiatives you took. What other initiatives did you have in the business during that period?
Due to the fact that we had so much uncertainty, Anna and I, we had to make a decision where we're going to stay in business or not.
Yes.
And you have to act quickly. And so one of the main decision makers to stay in business was the fact that Anna worked with yourself, Matt, and you guys did a daily cash forecast where we worked out all our fixed costs each day for the 3-month period, and that actually showed us quite scarily how much money was going out during the lockdown period.
Yes.
So that actually made us, it was the only thing that we actually had in business that we were in control of. And so it was a catch-22. You could actually at least make decisions. That was the only decision you could make, was where you were financially and where you're go too far and you have to close.
Yeah, because obviously we've done a lot of forecasting longer term, 12 months to 18 months, but the problem with that is that it all gone out the window, so it was actually just getting back to the basics really and understanding exactly what it costs to run your business. Yeah,
well, we never really have done a daily cost analysis, and you've never really had to. So the secret behind it was find out what our fixed costs were, and then Anna spent a lot of time trying to reduce those fixed costs. Yes. So was there any way we can reduce those costs?
Yeah, no, definitely. And a lot of businesses, that was a key for their survival. And one thing you've touched on with me is that you worked really hard during that period, and we know that some businesses sort of went into hibernation. And how important was it for you to be actively involved in the business daily, during that lockdown period?
It was huge, because you had to make a decision, and that decision kept evolving, because obviously with uncertainty of when we were coming out of lockdown, we needed to know when it was time to say close the doors. Yeah. So for us, it gave us an understanding of our financial position and where we could financially support the company and when we couldn't financially support the company.
And sort of having learnt the lessons around lockdown and how quickly we went in, obviously if we went into another lockdown, what sort of things are you doing now to help prepare for that?
Well, funny enough, Anna's still carrying on with her daily cash forecast, so the great thing about it was we're able to see where our wins are now, so we're a lot more not cautious with our spending, but more savvy of where our fixed costs are and what our sales forecast needs to be on a daily, weekly and monthly basis, as opposed to waiting until the end of the month, send your invoices out and fingers crossed you made a profit.
And just in terms of your clients paying you, how's that been over lockdown?
Our clients have been phenomenal. All of our clients, even one-off clients, they've been paying straight away.
And do you think clients are more empathetic at the moment?
Yeah, I think we're all in the same. Again, I've said that we're all in the same boat, but yeah, that they need to be paid as well. So, I feel the government's made a good point to saying that pay your bills.
Yes.
And we get through it together. So.
And it's kind of a common theme that I'm hearing and seeing in with clients I work with, that people are paying quicker than what they did pre-COVID. So I think it is that feeling of that obligation to each other, and that's great, because everyone does need to be able to pay their bills on time in order to survive at the moment. Just in terms of IT systems, and that you mentioned that you utilised technology for your guys around the training that they were doing. How else did that hold up for them in terms of do you have an online platform? Are your systems online, or did
No, we're still very manual, so that's brought that into light really. So we have been looking at options. For businesses that can remotely work from home, it's fine, but not every business person has uses a laptop for their job. Our guys use welders and swing hammers, so if we went back into lockdown again, we be looking at what other training resources that we could use to empower them moving forward.
Based on your recent experiences, what would be the 3 priorities you'd focus on if we went into lockdown again? 3
priorities. Number 1 would be a daily and weekly and fortnightly cash forecast, and that 100%, because again, it's the only thing we have in control of. Everything else is semi out of control with uncertainty. So number 1 would be that. Number 2, personal well-being. Because it is stressful and you've got to look after yourself.
So what sort of tips would you give someone around personal well-being?
Get a really good, strong support network, positive, reinforcing people. For me, I've got into fitness that I wasn't doing before. Find ways to get rid of the stress and talk. Having somebody you can lean on that's got empathy would be quite good.
And I know that personally you use a coach. How have you found that?
I found that amazing. So just for personal development work for myself personally, if it wasn't for my life coach, my wife, who's my business partner, yourself, Matt, and my board, I don't think I've been able to get through it as happy as I am. And as positive as I am.
Just in terms of business support, there's been a lot of support from government provided. What support have you accessed?
We were able to get the COVID funding, and we used that with Grant Thornton to do a cash forecast, so that was phenomenal.
Any other support you've been able to access?
We're entitled to the COVID wage supplement, so we've been able to access that twice now. So we're going through the process for the third round now.
And that's been obviously invaluable, as you mentioned earlier, and also the IRD small business loans. Did you access that?
Yeah, we have accessed that. So that's been phenomenal as well, to be fair. So.
And just with COVID funding, a lot of businesses have been able to use that for just, obviously the business cash flow forecasting and business continuity planning, but also around digital enablement and marketing. So it's been really useful for business out there, and I'm glad that that you guys have been able to access it, and it's been constructive and useful. Just in terms of the manufacturing sector, have you got any views on how that's tracking in Canterbury?
So that's an interesting question. It's very varied depending on the different sectors. Some businesses, they had a strong order book, so they're worrying about the 21. Some people are coming out of their orders now, and some people directly were affected straight away. So it is very spread. So I think we're all going to affect it in different times. It's just a matter of when.
So what are the key priorities for MAC3 as we move forward over the next 6 to 12 months?
Keys moving forward would be looking at our cash forecast,
Yes.
Trying to work on enhancing our staff,
Yes.
trying to increase our pipeline of sales,
Yes.
and our well-being.
And you also touched on that pivot or that change in strategic direction into sort of the health and safety sector. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, it's a growing sector for ourselves, and so for us, it's where and my qualifications are, as opposed to having an engineering company, and so for us, it just makes sense that we're trying to strengthen that side of our business moving forward to help people, because it's a big topic in itself.
So just in terms of health and safety, can you just tell us a little bit more about what MAC3 does in that space?
So we're a solutions-based engineering company predominantly, and in the health and safety sector, we're designing safety solutions around manufacturing, predominantly around manufacturing sector, where we're integrating perimeter guarding, light curtains, and interlocks and stuff around machinery and conveyors and that sort of stuff to meet the New Zealand and Australian standards.
Yes. And do you see that as being a wider opportunity than just locally in Canterbury?
Yeah, we are currently working all over New Zealand, so that spreads our portfolio throughout the whole country.
Just before we wrap up, is there any final sort of observations, suggestions you'd have to other business owners that are in the same place as you guys?
It doesn't have to be lonely in being in business. Have a good network of people around you. If you don't have a board or an advisory group, I'd 100% recommend seeking for some help. It doesn't always have to cost money. And a cash forecast.
Oh, well, I think we're just about to run out of time, but thank you for coming along today to share those experiences with us. I know they'll be invaluable for other business owners, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.